What's good, y'all? You got back at it again. I told y'all we in here 2019, bringing y'all fresh, new content. That ain't know it. There's no one else doing it like me, doing it out here. We still in here, hopefully get more consistent, but if y'all know the adult life, y'all know how busy it be out here. But I told y'all doing fresh, and I told y'all I'm doing new, and I'm bringing y'all stuff other people not talking about. Now, this idea came to me, I believe, last week, and I meant to do a video, but that video it got screwed up. Right, mess up, fuckery going on, but it's all good. We still back at it again. I'm going to be starting to do power tournaments. You know how some people will talk about abilities going against one another, and I love that. In these tournaments, they will be broken down into categories, okay, of a similar type going against a similar type. So we're not getting all kind of crazy and we have some kind of structure. And I will be, of course, having criteria as I always do to be as objective as possible, as neutral as possible. Because what happens, I notice that sometimes when you have mashups, whether it be characters and death matches, if you notice most of my death matches, there is structure in how I'm picking people, whether it be the same element, similar elements, or uh, differing elements, or whatever the case may be, or it's a old debated topic. I try to have some kind of comparative analysis, and I have an entire structure. Of course, I have a structure here, so you will understand where I'm coming from. And in each of these tournaments, there will be 8 different powers and abilities to be able to be debated one against the others to see which comes out supreme amongst all of them. All right, without further ado, all that intro long enough. The 8 abilities that we'll be talking about here will be the first match, the first fight is the Sharingan versus the Byakugan, and of course, as you can see in this title, is strictly about observation. Now, don't get misconstrued because one power may have multiple tangents of abilities. These are simply based on the observation itself. Alright? So as I was saying, the Sharingan versus the Byakugan. Second battle. We got precognition versus fortune telling. And don't worry, I will break down what I mean by each of these. And third, we'll have future sight versus perception. If you know observation hockey from One Piece, you'll understand that. And don't worry, we'll get to that when we get to there. And then the last fight of the first round, we have, of course, the spider sense, famous, versus radar sense, also very famous. Now, with the Sharingan, we are not doing the Mangekyo Sharingan. We're not doing the EMS, internal Mangekyo Sharingan, with all that craziness. You can say why? Because they're simply evolved states, but they're not the natural state of the Sharingan. You have to additionally get that shit. I'm not bringing in the Tensigan. I'm not doing all that extra for the Byakugan. We're simply sticking straight which base state has the best perceptive capacity. Okay? Now, what is the Sharingan? And what does it allow? The Sharingan's awakened predominantly by the Uchiha. Even though the eye can be used by other people, it is, I believe, a Kekkei Genkai to the Uchiha clan in Naruto. And the main things is 2 things. It also has something with hypnosis. The main 2 things is it allows for slight precognition. You read the opponent very, very well, and the abilities, the movement, and it allows for mimicry, the complete copy. For example, Kakashi became known as the copy shinobi because of the abilities to mimic the abilities. Sasuke was able to mimic, although not completely copy, but he was able to mimic Rock Lee's speed back in the Chunin exams. Those are the 2 main things. Detailed perception and mimicry, which were both phenomenal traits. When it comes to Byakugan, you can slightly see the chakra network when it comes to the Sharingan as well. In the Byakugan, you could see extensively the chakra network. You see it heavily utilized with the Gem Fist, predominantly by Hyuga Neji. He was a seeming master at a young age, a prodigy of that. Uh, you can also see for a long distance opponent. Uh, Hyuga Hinata went from 50 meters at a young age all the way to the age of 18, 12 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, which is, I believe, about 10 miles. It's crazy how far she expanded that, the range of scope. Also, you have almost a 360-degree field of vision. There's only one blind spot at the back near the vertebrae, which is famous. So those are the predominant traits of both of these dojutsus. Now, what do I consider for the better? Okay. Three categories. You had versatility, ease of usage and mastery, and effectiveness. In the versatility category, I have to give the slight edge to the Byakugan. Why? Even though the Sharingan, it's effective in what it does. Its main effectiveness, um, I'll get to that. It's effective in what it does with its versatility. It has 2 to 3 capacities. When it comes to Byakugan has a solid 3. So I gave the Byakugan a slight edge. You can say Sharingan has 3. It's but I gave the Byakugans a slight, because you're talking about specifically if we're talking in battle. Well, you can see opponents from a large distance. You can see what they're bringing internally, and which is possible potentially to see other things rather than just a chakra network. You can see a detail of potentially ki, chi, maybe things like magoi, other things of that nature. So you could apply to different things like that, and you know your field of vision is around the block. So that, I think, edges out a little bit more than what the Sharingan gives me. Ease of usage and mastery, I think they're both on par. Um, you got to learn it. Now, the downside also of the Sharingan, both have a strain, but the Sharingan seems to have a bigger strain on the user. So you can maybe give that a tick off, but both of them are about a mid level of ease of usage and mastery. Some people obviously are more effective than others, but we've seen even pretty fodder people use them. So it's not the most difficult. If we talk about 3 out of 5 or 5 out of 10, about an average, strain on the ease of usage and effectiveness, I gotta give it to Byakugan. Range, better chakra sight, better field of vision. That's it, devastating both at the long range and at the close range. The Sharingan's copy is nice, but there's a lot of stuff you can't copy. And so the Sharingan, it's almost like you need more of a high level combatant for it to be used properly, for specifically perception based. But the Byakugan has a more base set where someone like Hyuga Hinata, who's not that skilled, can be effective. We don't see that many non high level people use the Sharingan effectively. Just saying. Just saying. So in that fight, I gotta give the Byakugan the win on that one. Now, and the second one, precognition versus fortune telling. Precognition is seeing into the future. Now, there's a few different versions of that. I love for example, Juhabak and Bleach could see pretty much almost all, not exactly, he wasn't completely omniscient, but almost all futures. Okay, so we're dealing with seeing into the future. Um, but this is more so seeing the possibilities of the future rather than the direct future itself. Even though some write it like that, it's a bit more complicated than that. So I'm gonna keep it simple, and we're seeing possibilities of the future on this one specifically, and you'll see why that one I deal with other abilities. Also, fortune telling. Fortune telling. Um, there's a few different versions. There's probability seeing the chance of something, getting a glimpse of the distant future. These are all about fortune telling. It's about reading things using mediums, various mediums, whether it be a crystal ball, excuse me, cards like tarot cards, um, using various tools to be able to assist in gaining a glimpse into the future. Now, at offset, a lot of people think this will be a complete cakewalk for precognition. Not exactly. Here's why. Versatility. Versatility is actually a very interesting one on both of these. Okay. Precognition, you may see multiple sets of the future. That's a good thing and not so good. And we'll get into the effectiveness later. But the pros to it are you potentially see into the future in more of an effective passive, but you also could potentially go something like insane. Because if you're seeing all possibilities, how do you decide which one is right? You see what I'm saying? Now, if you fine tune it, then it can be more effective, but even still, it doesn't mean you will be able to change it. So it's one of those time paradox things. When it comes to fortune telling, there's a few different ways to do it. I think fortune telling has more of the versatility because number one, and I'll get into ease of usage and stuff with that, but it's really about the user and the user's skills when it comes to fortune telling. Fortune telling, I can see into potentially the distant future, or I can see my chances of success at something right now. And you could say that fortune telling takes more prep time, more setup, but depends. Again, both of these are really about all of these about the skill of the user, obviously. But when I'm looking at fortune telling gives me more versatility on how to be able to perceive the future. You could say it's kind of guesswork, but at the same time, not really. You look at someone like Basil Hawkins, okay? Basil Hawkins, he can see the percentage of somebody's chance of living and dying. That's insane. That's insane. He even went so far as a month into the future with Luffy's life. He kept drawing on Sabudi and he saw 0% chance of somebody dying. That's insane. That's insane. So fortune telling, I think, is a bit more versatile. Precognition is pretty simple and straightforward. Now, when it comes to ease of usage and mastery, I got to get this one to precognition because even if you're not that adept, let's say you only see one possible thing into the future. You have a sense of what's coming up. Fortune telling, if you're not that skilled, this is a way more difficult one. You have to be able to decipher things for yourself. So it's not precognition is more of on a base. This is where people's main argument for this category. Well, I wish I had that ability because it's a hell of a lot easier to use effectively initially than fortune telling is. So I got to give the edge there. Now here's the icebreaker: effectiveness. Effectiveness. Precognition on paper seems like the perfect thing. You know, you'll hear people, "Oh, that person has precognition. Why they would touch? If that person can see all possible futures, why would they touch?" Now, a lot of these precognition users, a Franklin Richards, a Jew Habak, for example, you just left with going, a seeming nigh omniscience when it comes to someone like Lucifer Morningstar. Supposedly, they're able to see these things. It brings in mad questions. With fortune telling, we don't really have those questions. We know the limitations and the straightforward nature of it. You're piecing together the probability of an event, okay? Now, the details you might not be getting caught up in, and here's what effectiveness is. But you can see, okay, the event is likely to happen. How do I prevent it from happening, or how do I make it happen? Okay. I'm also, for example, finally finishing up on season 3 of Flash dealing with Savitar. And this is kind of the problem with precognition, is Flash is trying to prevent the death of his potential wife, Iris West, right? That's the problem with dealing in precognition. You're trying to time manipulate Fortune telling, you ain't time manipulating. And if you ever deal in time manipulating, as is explained, you're dealing with a potential domino effect or wrecking another timeline. Barry Allen jokes. So I have got to give the effectiveness, surprisingly enough, to fortune telling because you're not trying to manipulate all of a timeline. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So right now we got the Byakugan as the winner, and we got fortune telling as the winner in round one. Next up, we're doing with future sight, and we're doing perception. Now, in and this isn't a spoiler because even the anime folks are caught up to the Katakuri versus Luffy fight in One Piece. One Piece, we have character Charlotte Katakuri, who could see really like a think of like a movie little film of like about 5 seconds into the actual future. The actual future. Now that future can be quote unquote changed. It's a set future. It's not like he's seeing an ever changing future. But it's a future can be changed if someone is fast enough or someone alters in some facet. But he sees the real future, if you will. It gets into parallel timelines kind of shenanigans. When it comes to perception, Luffy, on the other hand, had his own foresight, his own future sight. But it wasn't really seeing the direct, or as King of Lightning often says, the de facto future. Right? It was sensing the intentions, the will of another, and coming at them. Now, I'm not going to get into all of what observation hockey is. I've done videos, other people have done a plethora of videos, but we're not going to be caught up in that because I use that as an example. Other series do it as well. You see perception a lot with swordsmen. They get an initial feel. You see that. And whoever is able to outsee, if you will, outfeel the blade of another, is able to dodge and things like that. Different to a degree, but Ultra Instinct slightly has this kind of perception feel. But anyways, you see this a lot with martial artists. They're able to relatively see, quote unquote, because they're able to perceive different aspects, little twitches in somebody. It's like ultra focused observation, if you will. Now, when it comes to versatility, future sight, it's pretty fixed. It's pretty fixed. I gotta give it to perception on this one because perception can come. It's kind of individual. So each individual will develop it a little bit differently. And what do I mean by this? Let's just say we were playing, I don't know, basketball, right? And let's say you had future sight and you saw a guy gonna do a crossover. Well, you get into position there. He reacts to what you did and he pulls up for a jump shot or he passes the ball. You saw the future, but he was able to react to your react. Kind of what Sanji did if you saw what he did in Whole Cake Island. He reacted to Katakuri's reaction and Katakuri missed. You see what I'm saying? When it comes to perception though, you sense what the other person is doing. And if you master it well enough, you can surpass the future sight. Because it's really the individual's capacities coming to full play rather than relying on seeing a glimpse of the future. So you're less it becomes less problematic for you in the overall scheme of things. When it comes to effectiveness, I mean the ease of usage, excuse me, and the mastery, future sight very, very difficult. Perception is difficult, but a tick less. You can see, like I say, martial arts masters seeing into the future and controlling that and getting that and staying focused with that is really difficult. Really, really difficult. And as far as the effectiveness, you can say this one I would give the future sight because you're actually seeing the future rather than perception. You're kind of feeling your way out of what the future may be. So you can definitely say that the effectiveness for most people would be future sight. For someone like me, it would definitely be perception, but I'm going to be completely unbiased. But overall, I have to give it to perception. For some, that might be a big surprise, but I have to give it to perception on as far as in complete observation because the lack of fixation and the more versatility, as well as the ease of usage, is slightly lower. Not much, but slight. So the final fight in the first round, we have Spider Sense and Radar Sense, a classic matchup. I've seen Danko talk about it. This is an old school matchup. Now, of course, the Spider Sense we know about Spider-Man Peter Parker. Now, a lot of people conflate what Spider Sense is. I had to make sure I looked up and did my research on what people were talking about and to make sure I knew specifically what Spider Sense is. Now, Spider Sense is more like a sixth sense, all right, of what may occur. Danger, danger alert. And there's also, and that's pretty much what it is. It's a danger alert as well as you get a sense of potentially hidden objects. That's the basis of what the perception ability. Not all this extra stuff precognition. It ain't precognitive, really. Right? It is precognition, but precognition on a innate sense of something. For example, Spider-Man can ignore it. Okay, so it's kind of automatic, but it's a sensation. Right? It's not a force like a future sight. It's not that. All right, he can ignore it. If it's a friend, he doesn't see any danger. If it's something like Venom, who has his genetic kind of coding, the Venom symbiote, he doesn't sense that either. There's a lot of holes in Spider Sense. All right, just so keep that in mind. Radar Sense, on the other hand, is like a psychological echolocation, like a psychological sonar. That's pretty much what it is. We see people like Daredevil, Matt Murdock have it, Namor the Submariner. Right? Keep it brief and simple. Now, when it comes to versatility, this one is easily Radar Sense. It's not even a question. You can see when it comes to distance, all right? You can see more so around you, all right? Your proximity. You know where actual things can potentially be coming from rather than, ooh, I get a sense of danger. You don't know where the danger's coming. You could have literally three different guys around you. But Radar Sense, you know that. You know exactly where they're coming from. Um, range, you know, particular targets. You don't have it going off all the time. Okay. Now, when it comes to ease of usage and mastery, ease of usage, this one goes in the Spider Sense. This one, I mean, number one, it's innate. Radar Sense, you got to train it. Like Matt Murdock, he trained it. But if you can effectively train it better, it can far supersede. You see what I'm saying? But if we just go on pure base of usage, it's got to be the Spider Sense. Spider Man didn't even have to train that; it just activated naturally. Okay. Now, as far as effectiveness, by and large, it's not even close, bro. It's Radar Sense. It's Radar Sense. You had someone like Matt Murdock train his ability to. Now he also had enhanced abilities because of the radioactive nature, but he was able to train his ability where he could see miles from a rooftop. Where to a sense he was able to train his sense of smell, train his hearing. He was able to train all of this in conjunction with his radar sense to be able to hear someone's heartbeat, to be able to smell something from a mile away, almost like he was Wolverine or something. Like he was in ridiculous what Daredevil was able to do. Spider-Man can't even touch anywhere near that. Not even close. So that one to me is the easiest one of this whole round is the radar sense. Other people may say spider sense. If you look at the effectiveness of what each is capable of in a more practical, non superhuman way, Matt Murdock is more normal than Peter Parker is. We both know that to be true. Everybody knows that to factually be true. And yet Matt Murdock, based if not we ain't talking about physical strength, can potentially can outclass Peter. She's a better fighter. She's arguably more acrobatic and agile. Some find that debatable. But the regardless nature of it, Matt is more human, even though he's superhuman. But as far as his physical capacity, it ain't superhuman like Peter's is. So just keep that in mind when you think of ability versus abilities. So out of the first round, we have the Byakugan, fortune telling, perception, and radar sense. Everybody in the second. The second of theirs meets up. Now round two started where things start getting really, really interesting. Byakugan versus fortune telling. We know what each of the abilities are, so we can breeze right through this. Versatility. Versatility. Byakugan, you have the range. You have I would say the Byakugan casually more versatile than fortune telling. Fortune telling is a bunch of guesswork and probability. Byakugan effectiveness use of range. Um, you can see someone's internal thing. In a fight, the Byakugan eyes want that. Fortune telling, not so much. When it comes to ease of use and mastery, once again, Byakugan. You got someone like Hinata as a child could relatively effectively use it. She just wasn't that good at fighting. Versus you have someone like Basso Hawkins, who we've yet to see use fortune telling in a fight. And as far as effectiveness, kind of a wash. It's honestly a wash. You can use fortune telling effectively. More of a strategic standpoint. When it comes to Byakugan, you can use it effectively, but there are ways to counter it and then bypass it, especially if you figure out the blind spot. Fortune telling really has no blind spots. It's depending on the user to use it effectively. So I think that they're relatively on par. Byakugan easily wins this round. It's not even debatable, really. If you want to debate me, we can go at it in the comment sections, but I think everybody knows the truth. Now we got perception versus radar sense. All right. Look at the versatility. Perception, you're able to feel things around you. You're able to sense a lot of things. Radar sense, better field of vision. Knowing the number of opponents. It really runs into the same problem. Look, and when it comes to this category, it's very simple. Radar sense wins. Here's why. Perception runs into the exact same problem that spider sense does. All right. Radar sense is simply superior. Range, knowing the targets, knowing the clarity of what I'm looking for. I can focus it more. Spider sense, I just get a sensation. That ain't gonna work. That is not. You cannot say versatility is more so than what radar sense gives you. And I just gave y'all the basics of it. I ain't going to that more next level stuff that radar sense can do. It's ridiculous. When it comes to ease of usage and mastery, perception, leagues ahead. It's miles ahead. You got somebody like Luffy, like he's been fighting, but someone like Luffy in a fight over 10 hours, almost 11 hours that he was focusing on this, trained this, and became adept in it. It took Mac Murdock how long, for example, to learn this? Namor, how old? Namor's been fighting how long? You get my point? Like it's night and day. Perception way easier to use and learn how to master than radar sense. That's why a lot of people prefer things like spider sense and perception because they're similar, different but similar. That's why they prefer that because they're like, I don't really have to work to use it. Doesn't make it better, but they like that. As far as an effectiveness, I gotta go same with the same areas versatility with radar sense. Perception is good. Radar sense is great. Radar sense, it just brings too much to the table that perception doesn't. Perception is great for a one-on-one. It may be close proximity. It is not great if you have versus a sniper, a ranged fighter. It's just not great, bro. Radar sense gives me a better shot versus somebody like Bullseye, versus someone like Deathstroke Slade Wilson, versus someone like Deadpool, um, Wade. I can't think of man's name, and versus someone like the Punisher, Frank Castle. I'll take radar sense over some perception all day, every day. So there's that. So in the final fight, right, we have the Byakugan versus the radar sense. Right. Now, versatility. It's a complete wash. They're on par. They're practically the same abilities, bro. The slight difference is you can say the radar sense can focus more so on the external, but the Byakugan can focus on the internal. Like they balance they cancel each other out. Honestly, they have practically the same skill sets. It's just applied differently. When it comes to ease of usage and mastery, the Byakugan we already established is way easier to use than the radar sense. It's not even close. Byakugan way easier to use. All right, way easier to master. Freaking Hinata went from in like 6 years. She went from 50 meters to 12 kilometers. What am I supposed to do with that? And you think she was actively training that heavily? Come on now, dog. Come on now, dog. Matt Murdock at best can get you like 5 miles. Right? Byakugan clearly superior in that aspect. Effectiveness, I gotta go radar sense. Radar sense. The Byakugans, once again, is really good. Radar sense is great. Because you can the effectiveness, here's where even though they have similar abilities, the effectiveness totality is far superior when it comes to radar sense. Matt Murdock, no Hyuga has shown anything on a level of something Matt Murdock can do with his ability. Matt Murdock's the most famous. He's the one I know most about with his ability. No one's even come close. No Hyuga's ever come close. So we seem to be on a tie. So how do we break this tie? Which is actually the superior? I mean, I can leave it up to y'all, but y'all gonna tell me anyways. Overall, this is the nail biter. This is the razor's edge. They seem to be tied. I have to go with radar sense. Here's why. One simple fact. I said the Byakugan's easier to use and master. I said the radar sense is more effective. Effect over ease of usage. All day, every day. Here's what I mean. Throwing a punch may be easier to use. Let's say throwing a jab. Throwing a jab, easy to use. Learning how to counterpunch, a lot more difficult. But the effectiveness of a counter right, all day, every day. The effectiveness matters. Ease of usage, a pistol. Effectiveness, a sniper. I can give comparisons all day, but I'm pretty sure y'all can figure out where I'm going with this. So overall, out of all this tournament, the winner of observation have to go with radar sense as the best observation tool. This is my breakdown. What is y'all's? Unexpected Wonder, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts, and have a beautiful day, beautiful night. Peace.